Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here again for Thinking Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. If it's noon on Tuesday, you know that it is Thinking Tuesday. So, welcome and thank you for being here. For those who are joining for the first time, or will be listening to the replay on YouTube. On Thinking Tuesday, we take some time to examine our thoughts, our beliefs, to see where they're taking us. Are they taking us to higher heights, or are they keeping us in those self-imposed boxes, causing us to live unfulfilled lives, subscribing to what cannot happen, what you cannot do, rather than the possibilities of what you can do? And our motto here on Thinking Tuesday is that your mind is a garden and your thoughts are the seeds. And you can grow flowers, which are those positive thoughts, or you can grow weeds. And we try to avoid cultivating those weeds because they choke out the flowers, which are the positive thoughts that lead us to cultivate better opportunities for ourselves. Because the way we think is the way we live. And the way we think, we're going to attract certain things to us. So rather than dwell on the negative and rather than cultivate the weeds, we focus on the positive, which are the beautiful flowers, the beautiful thoughts, the positive thoughts that can take us much, much, much further. So yesterday, I thought I'd talk to you about this. Yesterday, I was helping my mother prepare some pepper pot soup. If you have not tasted it, you're really missing something. But pepper pot is a favorite West Indian dish made of spinach and a lot of okras and a whole lot of delicious, healthy ingredients. It's really, really a great, healthy soup, really. And when I looked at the properties that okra has, if you don't know what okra is, just Google it, take a look at it. But as she was slicing the okras, I saw her do something that I've always seen her do. And I have even adopted it myself. But yesterday, for some reason, I decided to ask her. She sliced the okra and discarded the top of the stem, right where it's picked from the tree. And I got curious and I asked, "Why are you discarding the stem?" I asked my mom. And she stopped for a while and then she said, "Because that's the way we've always done it." So when she was growing up, watching her mother make pepper pot, that's what she saw. And then I realized that I was following the same thing also, because whenever I cook okra, I cut off the stem and I throw it away. But the answer did not really satisfy me. I'm a curious person. But it just hit me differently this time, and the answer did not really satisfy me. Because I started asking myself, is this what I'm going to tell my daughter, or someone else for that matter, when they ask me the same question? Why do you throw away the stem, the top of the okra? Well, I decided to do some research, and I found out that the reason for discarding the stem of the okra is because it's very, very bitter. Now that makes a whole lot of sense to me. And now my mom and I have information that we did not have before that explains why you throw the stem away. And I have a good answer for anyone who asks me how to prepare okra before cooking and why the top is discarded. Right? But since I'm a curious person by nature, I decided that I'm going to do some further research and actually taste the top of the okra the next time I have the opportunity to cook it. so that I can experience it for myself and have a more authentic response for anyone who asks me, because I will have experienced it myself and I can say it is really, really bitter, so you don't even want to keep it around. I don't know of anybody who cooks with that without taking off the top, but there might be some who like the bitter taste. I don't like it, but that's the reason that I found out why the stem is cut off. So you probably wonder, where am I going with this? My question for you is, what have you been doing in any area of your life in the same way all the time, quote unquote, just because it's the way we've always done it? That is such an answer that we always get from people when they've always done something and never thought about why they're doing it or how it could be done differently. So what areas of your life, and that can be any area, have you been responding in a similar way? I've done this, I'm doing this because it's always been done. That's the way I've seen it done. What about in your relationships? What are you doing in your relationships? What have you been doing in your relationships because that's the way you do it all the time? Is it causing conflict or is it causing harmony? What about on your job? Are you doing the same thing over and over just because that's the way everybody else does it? The way you approach your health, your emotional health, your physical health, your mental health. What are you doing just because that's the way they've always done it? What family traditions, perhaps, are you continuing just because it's the way we've always done it? I am sure you can come up with many more examples. But my follow-up question would be this. After asking why or what areas are you continuing to do things because that's the way they've always done it, the follow-up question to that would be, how has it served you? How has it served you to continue doing those things just because that's the way we've always done it? Do you know why you do what you do? Just because that's the way they've always done it? Not a good answer. And what's the reasoning behind it? What's the reasoning behind you doing what you've been doing or what you've always done, what they've always done? Has it had a positive or a negative impact on your life? Those are very important questions to ask. Things that we take for granted, which might have a lot of important meaning and a lot of important information behind them if we just research them. Mine just happened to be okra, but I'm sure there are many others that I would be looking at about why I do things or why we've always done things that way. Of course, if it's positive, if you find that you're doing those things continuously, and if it's possible, you may decide to continue, especially if you can explain why you can do it. That why is so important. Don't do things just because that's the way you do it or because that's what you're told to do. Find out for yourself. Ask yourself, now, why am I doing this? But even if you can explain why you do it, shouldn't really satisfy you. Because you can always do it differently and do it better. Does it mean that you have to keep it the same way just because it works? Yeah, I guess the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, might apply here. But do you have to wait until it's broke before you fix it? You know, and even if it ain't broke, how can you enhance it? A lot of things that we have the pleasure of using today were not broken, but they were just enhanced, and now we are the beneficiaries of it. So even if you're doing something well, because it's always done that way, is there a way that you can do it differently and enhance it so that you and others can benefit from it? Doesn't mean that you have to keep doing it the same way. Are you willing to try a new way? to find a new way. And of course, you should ask yourself the same questions and be willing to look at how the lack of understanding of why you're doing something or approaching something in a particular way may be detrimental to you. If you're doing it because they've always done it this way and it's detrimental to you, why should you continue doing it? And why should you understand? You need to understand why you continue to approach it in that way if it's not serving you well. What's the reason behind that? It shouldn't be just because that's the way we've always done it. Unfortunately, many times I see clients who say, well, that's just me. I've always been this way. But you're not dead. You're still living, and as long as you're living, you can always change. I mentioned, if it wasn't last week, the week before, you can always make a U-turn. But if you keep doing the same things that you've been doing before, there are not going to be any changes. There's not going to be any growth. We know that change is sometimes very difficult and sometimes very painful. And sometimes, for example, someone might stay, let's say, in an abusive relationship because of fear. Doesn't mean they can't or shouldn't get out, but that might be one of the reasons why they're in that relationship. Someone might stay in an unfulfilled job, perhaps, because at least I know the job and I'm getting paid, even though they don't like the job, right? Or they might say, well, I don't know what I'll find if I leave this unfulfilling job or this unfulfilling or even abusive relationship. Those are some reasons why many times people do things that they've always done because that's all they need to do. That's all they know to do. And a host of other reasons why people continue to do the things that they do because they've always done it or because they've always seen it done that way. But I'm sure, I am very, very sure that you've also heard the definition of insanity. And insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting new results. We're not going to get new results if we don't try something different. We have to be different and do differently. Living your life or living a life guided by the mindset of this is the way we've always done it or this is the way I've always done it. It really defies what I've talked about in previous messages, defies the law of the rubber band. If you remember, the law of the rubber band says growth stops where you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. So we know that a rubber band is only useful when it's stretched. And that's what we should be guided by. How can we stretch ourselves? How can we question those things that we've always done or they've always done just because? How can we stretch ourselves to do some research and find out, is this the way it should be? Can I enhance what we've always done? So stretching yourself, remembering the law of the rubber band, will help you to face some of those questions or some of those situations where you tend to do it just because that's the way we've always done it. Because if you don't stretch yourself, if we don't stretch ourselves, then we don't challenge ourselves. We don't challenge ourselves, and we'll never know what our capabilities are. Just think about how good you feel when you allow yourself to do something differently and get different results, especially if they're positive results. You want to do it again, right? So if you do not allow yourself to be curious about why you do the things the way you do them, why you have adopted certain views perhaps and behaviors, you are bound to continue to have the same negative results that may follow. So do differently, get different results. but you can't expect to do the same things just because that's the way they've been done, even if it's not serving you well, and get different results. So if you refuse to go within, if you refuse to go within and ask those important self-reflective questions like I mentioned in the beginning, why am I doing this? Is this serving me well? Do I have to continue doing this just because that's the way I learned? Is that the way that I have to continue just because that's what I saw? You know, asking yourself those reflective questions, then you will really go without. So you have to go within so that you can experience something differently. You gain something by going within, asking those questions, and coming up with answers that's satisfying, that are growth producing. And it will help you to grow beyond your current circumstances as well. It would also allow you to enhance your life, even if it's a good life, because just because we have a good life doesn't mean that we stop asking questions. We don't stop stretching ourselves. We have good lives because we stretched ourselves in the first place. So why stop now? If it works, continue doing it. But by settling for the status quo, which I do not advise, and living a life based on that's the way we've always done it, you really cultivate a self-limiting thinking pattern, a negative mindset, and really cheat yourself out of really getting to know who you are, what you can offer, how you can enhance your relationships, and a host of other possibilities, how you can enhance your life in general. Where can you see possibilities now that you didn't see before? So today I want to challenge you. Mine was asking about the okra yesterday, but I want to challenge you to begin looking at any area of your life. It can be something simple that you just do all the time just because that's the way you're accustomed to. Challenge yourself. Why am I doing this? It can be something major also. But get in the habit of challenging yourself and question why you do the things that you do, especially if that's the only way that you've seen it done. You want to adopt a positive mindset and really try to understand the reasons for why you're doing the things that you're doing, and honestly determine if it has been working for you. Now that should be glaring. If you're honest with yourself, you can determine if those things have been working for you. If you continue doing those things just because, and I can't help laughing because it's so funny, but when we make that statement, sometimes it doesn't sound as funny because we just don't think about it. So if it's not working for you, how do you make a shift? Or are you willing to make a shift in your thinking and take a more proactive stance so that you're not living or making decisions by default, but living and making decisions by design? Decisions that you determine, not because that's the way you've always seen it done or that's the way you've always understood it, but design your life by thinking differently and not living by default. Because change, we know, is not always easy, but life is about change. And if we don't change, we get left back, right? We get stagnated. And we change our thinking so that we can make great changes in our lives. So I hope that this has benefited you, that it has added value to you, as I always say. If it has, then please share it with someone who can benefit from it. These messages are meant to motivate you, to challenge you, to help you begin to think differently, to help you realize that your thinking is your lifeline. The way you think is going to drive how you feel, and the way you feel is going to drive how you behave, the actions that you take. So make sure they're positive thoughts. Thank you for joining me on Thinking Tuesday. If you want to hear previous messages, please go to my YouTube channel, Thinking Tuesday, Cheryl Burton. Share it with someone who you feel could benefit from those messages. Also, feel free to visit my website. You can connect with me through my website. That's drcherylburton.com. You can review the programs and services I offer. And as I always say, if you're in need of something that's not posted there, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, because all of my services are customized to fit the needs of my clients. You can also book me for a consultation, a complimentary consultation, to get some help in thinking through anything that might be a challenge for you right now. Thank you to those who have made referrals through my website. And also, you can book me to speak at any of your events through your organizations, or trainings through your places of business. So thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 12. And please don't live by, well, that's the way they always done it. Change your thinking, change your life. Take care. Bye for now. See you next Tuesday.